yes, this book definitely has touched a lot of nerves. Right or wrong is a perception, but important nerves definitely this book has touched is my opinion. And coming to the next question, in case of India, by default or by design, we created a large number of engineering students for over more than 3 decades, starting from 1990s. The STEM education and the quality of education is debatable. That we will not go into it. But these engineers are there. They are there in every walk of life, every field, every government department, the corporates, everywhere they are there. In fact, you are aware of the situation where the postgraduate engineering students are going for even lowly paid government jobs, that you are aware. But they are there. Now, how, when the question is, how can we consolidate on this large pool of engineering students who are doing jobs across? And when you say the people are getting modernized, how do we make sure that these people they are awakened, they are informed, and they become part of this awareness? This is what I request you to answer.
So, the key word that I'll use to answer the question is the word innovation. The people who are educated in these fields are supposed to be innovative. They're supposed to be able to think for themselves. Now, a very small percent of the people who graduate as engineers in India are actually doing engineering. They're doing everything other than engineering. I mean, I know people who are running some business, somebody runs some restaurant chain, somebody doing some business here and there, somebody's in the police service, somebody's in the administrative service, some are corporate people, various middle level. That's nothing to do with engineering, you see. So while India produced a large number of engineering graduates, it did not produce a large number of engineers. There's a difference between a graduate and somebody who's actually doing that. So they have book knowledge, a lot of book knowledge, and they have not been given, the opportunity to actually do real engineering. This says a lot about the kind of education system we have. This education system was created by the British, who openly wrote in the 1800s, early 1800s, starting with Macaulay and others, that if we give these people an inferiority complex about their own culture and we make them into kind of second-class Englishmen and deny them, creativity, and just make them babus and clerks, they can run the country for us. We will be the boss and they will run the country for us. The same way as now, the future is the elite will run the world through algorithms. The algorithms are the babus, the kind of automated babus, because they have the rules and they run the show. Previously, there were no algorithms, so you need human beings and train them with algorithms. So basically, the training of Indians was teach the algorithm. The British told you, do this, do this, do this, do this. This is your job. Don't ask too many questions and don't worry about what the other fellow does. Just do this job. So we continued this education system for 200 years, which is a real shame. Now, people ask me, were Indians ever creative? And they think that it's a fault of our tradition. But I point out that, look at the contributions to astronomy and mathematics and the pioneering in basic, the creators of linguistics and grammar, from Panini onwards and so many others. You look at practical physical level infrastructure in ancient archaeology, whether it is the Saraswati Indus civilization, Harappa, Dholavira, all those places. You look at the metallurgy in some various sites. And this list goes on and on. And it spread from India to Southeast Asia, and it went all the way to Afghanistan. All those, before they were destroyed, those places were really part of the Indian landscape. And a lot of this went to the Middle East. A lot of Indian metallurgy went to church bells. The first church bells, when you go and do the metallurgy of the oldest church bells that exist, though that metallurgy is Buddhist. Buddhists used to send bell as a kind of Emperor Ashoka used to send a bell through his ambassadors to all parts of the world with some inscriptions on them. So you will find more than 2,000-year-old Indian metallurgy, not only in church bells, but you will find it in the Roman archives talk about buying this wood steel from India because that was the toughest steel for making swords and shields. So India was a land of innovation. Medicine, so much medicine. So if you look at the innovation of the Indian mind, in those times. You cannot say that Indian people are always kind of dumbed down. It is not true. So why this happened, dumbing down during the British era, because it served a colonial ruler to have a lot of people who just follow, instructions, algorithms. Indians are very good at learning an algorithm the master teaches you and carrying it out. This is very Indian, became famous for that. So this is the problem. You cannot be an engineer if all you do is follow some algorithm. You must know how to do engineering as a creative person. So we have to introduce creative thinking to be innovative, to have our patents. So we are not exporting the brains that work under some foreign client and he turns them into, people who develop new technology. The Indians, even after so many centuries of being colonized, the basic quality of the human being is very good, because the same Indians, when they go to United States, they go to Silicon Valley, they are the movers and shakers and making all kind of waves. So the problem is in India. The problem is not the Indian individual lacking brains. That's not the problem, because I know enough people all over the world who are doing very well. The problem is somehow in India, we do not have an ecosystem based on merit, based on innovation. And so we are used to very low level expectation. We just teach children something in college, and then they recite it back in some exam and they pass the exam. So, you have large number of, on the one hand, you have large quantity of STEM people, but the quality is not there. So therefore, the challenge is how to change this whole system. We have one government after another. We have one education minister after another promising to do all those things, but they don't do it. I mean, the job is not some speeches somewhere in parliament or going to some manthan and make some speech and get some big applause. The job is you got to not only redo the curriculum, but you got to train lakhs of teachers. In order to train millions of students, you need to train lakhs of teachers, because, the number of teachers all over from kindergarten all the way to college is large number of teachers. So you got to create a new generation of teachers. Who's going to train the teachers? So you need people, you need trainings of teacher institutes with new kind of, and then you'll train the teachers. Then the teachers will then train the students. It'll take a generation. There is no easy solution to this. This is why in my case study, I'm saying that India's problems are very complex, because the challenges, the negative consequences of AI, whether it's in the hands of China, Pakistan producing weapons, whether it's in the hands of breaking India forces, creating internal problems, whether it's in the hands of industrialists creating, competitive products which dislocate the old workers and employees, whatever the kind of disruption, the solution to it requires upskilling, and upskilling takes time. So the problem is imminent, short term. The solution is long term. I mean, it's like a doctor says that you got to reduce so many 20 kilos, and problem is like immediate. You have to do it. But he says, sir, even if I starve, I cannot lose 20 kilos in 24 hours. So the problem is more urgent. The solution is going to take long. This is very serious issue. Very serious issue. How to turn India's STEM graduates into functioning engineers, functioning scientists, functioning mathematicians, functioning in some field. So this is the challenge your generation and younger generations have to face. Also concerned about some wrong things that India is doing, which is, for example, turning the IITs into humanities and liberal arts. So what will happen is it all become like Ashoka University and JNU and these kind of places, and create Gadar. And so, the STEM requires, if you look at the rise of China, is because they really created scientists and physicists and material scientists and AI people and, engineers, really created a whole generation of that, which is the largest population of actually practicing engineers, not with their degrees, but actually practicing scientists, actually practicing people in those fields is in China. Numerically, and USA is scared of that, because US does not have such a large population to produce such a large number of technology people. So India is making a mistake. Instead of upgrading the STEM to higher quality, more innovativeness, more patents, and have incubators, have projects, Like when you go to Stanford or MIT or Carnegie Mellon or Princeton University right here, as an undergraduate, you're innovating, you're inventing things, you're already starting doing startups here and there. A venture capitalist coming to you, funding you and all that, undergraduates even. So instead of creating that, the Indian government is now saying, let's turn them into some humanities and social sciences people. It's a bad idea. The social sciences people are third rate standard. I mean, I'm sorry. I talk to a lot of social sciences people. They are third rate standard by international levels. They are just copycatting the social science taught in the West. They're teaching that in India. There is nothing, they don't understand their own society except through the lens of the Westerners. So these social sciences kind of bringing some extreme Marxist and postmodernist and post-colonialist type of view, subaltern view, are disconnected from the traditions of India itself. In India has its own social sciences. So social sciences got enough problems of their own. And AI, I'm also writing on how artificial intelligence is revolutionizing the social sciences, revolutionizing even in the West. So let's say the old social sciences which are in the West, let's call it 1.0. And let's say AI is going to create a social sciences 2.0 in the West. It's happening. While in India, we are still on the Western 1.0 social sciences, which came long time ago. Those 1.0 social sciences, we are now going to take over into the STEM also, which is a stupid thing to do. While the rest of the world is upgrading, is considering those social sciences to be obsolete and upgrading those to the new AI-based social sciences, we in India are going to take the engineering people and turn them into the old-fashioned social sciences. It's a strategic blunder that the education ministry is doing, and nobody has done a critique of it in this particular way. And I have wanted an audience. I've not been given an audience. So this is why I'm going to the public. So I think the education system continues to have very serious problems.